everybody. This is Morgan from Fox Chapel High School, and you're listening to the Time Talks, the show that travels back in time for people who love local history. As we all know, the 1920s were a time of great change in America, and this was especially true for the city of Pittsburgh. In the early 1900s, Pittsburgh became an industrial city thanks to new technologies and Andrew Carnegie, for both black and whites migrating from the South, as well as immigrants. Pittsburgh was seen as a place to achieve the American dream, but what you may not know is that Pittsburgh also holds the title as Mecca of the Negro Baseball Leagues, and our city was the only one in America with two black professional baseball teams, the Crawfords and the Homestead Grays. Today we will explore the rise of the American Negro League of Baseball in Pittsburgh during this era. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Josh Gibson. Hello and welcome Josh Gibson. Thanks so much for joining us today. I can't tell you how much of an honor it is to be interviewing you today. Can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Hello, Morgan. It's great to meet you as well. I'm happy to be here to talk about my life and career as a baseball player. I'm proud to be from Pittsburgh and to have grown up in such a great sports city. Let's see. I was born in 1911 in Buena Vista, Georgia, and grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I began my professional baseball career in 1930 and played for 17 years. I was often called the Black Babe Ruth, and I became known for my powerful hitting and exceptional defensive skills. I was a catcher for the Homestead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords.
Wow! It is truly an honor to speak with you today. You mentioned that you were known as the Black Babe Ruth. How does that make you feel? Do you view it as a compliment or an insult?
Being called the Black Babe Ruth is both a compliment and an insult. On the one hand, it is a recognition of my skill and talent as a baseball player, and it is an honor to be compared to one of the greatest players in the history of the game. Babe Ruth was known for his powerful hitting and exceptional all-around ability, and to be compared to him is a testament to my own skill and ability as a ball player. On the other hand, being called the Black Babe Ruth also highlights the racism and discrimination that I and other black players faced during my career. Babe Ruth was a white player who played in the major leagues, and as a black player in the Negro Leagues, I was not given the same opportunities and recognition as him. This was a frustrating and unfair situation, and it is a reminder of the systemic racism and discrimination that existed in American society at the time.
I can understand how being called the Black Babe Ruth is both a compliment and an insult. It recognizes your skills and abilities as a baseball player, but it also highlights the challenges and injustices that you and the other black players faced during your careers. I read that the statistics kept for the Negro League games were spotty, so unfortunately we will never know the precise number of home runs you hit. But it is estimated by baseball historians that you hit more than 900 home runs between 1930 to 1946, which is over 200 more than Babe Ruth. But who's counting, right? But seriously, for people who are unfamiliar with the Negro Baseball League, how could you explain it to them?
The NBL was made up of teams from several major cities, including Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, and of course, Pittsburgh. The league was highly competitive, and its teams and players were known for their skill and talent. The NBL was founded by Rube Foster, a former player and manager in the Negro Leagues. Foster recognized the need for a professional league for black players, as many talented African American ballplayers were unable to compete in the major leagues due to segregation and discrimination. He worked with other black baseball leaders and owners to establish the NBL, and the league officially began play in 1920.
The American Negro Baseball League helped to pave the way for the future generations of black ballplayers and played a significant role in the development of professional baseball in America. What was it like playing in the league and in your hometown of Pittsburgh?
In a time of segregation and discrimination, I faced many obstacles and injustices both on and off the field. However, I was also able to be a part of a community of talented and dedicated players, coaches, and fans who supported and encouraged each other.
What role did Pittsburgh play in the 1920s in the NL?
Pittsburgh played a significant role in the Negro Leagues in the 1920s, in addition to the success of the Holstead Grays and the Pittsburgh Crawfords. Pittsburgh was also a hub of black culture and community in the 1920s. The city had a thriving African American population and a vibrant music and arts scene, located in the Hill District, that was also referred to as Little Harlem, since many of the Negro League players called Pittsburgh home. This city became an important center of Negro League baseball and a key contributor to the growth and success of the league in the 1920s.
It is important that the city's rich history and contributions to the game continue to be celebrated and remembered today. Josh, you mentioned the Hill District was sometimes called Little Harlem. What was the Hill District like in the 1920s?
The Hill District in the 1920s was a vibrant and thriving community, despite the challenges and injustices faced by its residents. Due to racial segregation and discrimination, the neighborhood had a rich history and culture, and it was a center of black life in Pittsburgh. It was also a hub of political activism and organizing, as many residents worked to fight against racism and discrimination, and to promote social and economic justice.
How would you say the Negro League progressed during your career?
It definitely did. We eventually had an organized league, not pick-up games in the sandlots. Well, at least, we considered them well organized. I truly felt as though I had something to play for besides just making a payday. We had both black and white fans, and it meant something to have a place that people looked at us with positivity. And that's what it was like after we showed Pittsburghers how good we were.
Do you think the Major League Baseball League will ever recognize the Negro League? And how would you feel about that?
However, there are still some ways in which the MLB could further recognize and honor the Negro League and its players. For example, the MLB could formally integrate the statistics and records of Negro League players into its official record books, and it could make more of an effort to educate fans and players about the history and significance of the Negro League. As for how I would feel about further recognition of the Negro League by the MLB, I would be extremely proud and grateful. I dedicated my life to the game of baseball, and it would be an incredible honor to be recognized by the highest level of professional baseball. I believe that the Negro League and its players played an important role in the history of baseball, and I would be happy to see the MLB continue to honor and recognize our contributions to the game. It's difficult for me to say whether or not the Major League Baseball will ever officially recognize the Negro League. If the MLB were to officially recognize the Negro League, I think it would be a positive step in acknowledging the contributions and accomplishments of the many talented players who participated in the Negro League.
Would you have liked to have won an MVP award? Is it something that haunts you still?
As a former baseball player, of course I would have liked to win an MVP award. The MVP award is one of the highest honors a player can receive, and it recognizes their outstanding performance and contributions to their team. I worked hard throughout my career to improve my skills and help my team succeed, and I think winning an MVP award would have been a great recognition of those efforts. However, I also recognize that there were many factors outside of my control that made it difficult for Negro League players, like myself, to compete for individual awards, like the MVP. Because we were not allowed to play in the major leagues, we were not eligible for many of the same awards and recognition as white players. This was a frustrating and unfair situation, but I never let it get in the way of my love for the game and my determination to play to the best of my ability.
Josh Gibson, you are an MVP to me, your fans, and all the people that call Pittsburgh home. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk with us today. It was an honor speaking with you. Do you have a message to give to the future generations of Pittsburghers?
Thank you for having me today, Morgan. It was my pleasure. As a player, I was determined to let my performance on the field speak for itself, and I am proud of the legacy I left as a pioneering African-American ballplayer. I want to remind future athletes, always credit their teammates and coaches for their success, and never let the racism and discrimination get the best of them.
And now, a word from our sponsor, Calvin's Ice Cream Parlor, a shop that originally opened in the 1920s. The ice cream is homemade and absolutely delicious. After you visit to the Negro League Baseball exhibit, head 3 minutes down the road to travel back in time with the sweet treat. I sure did.